Tonight on NBN News, the last-minute Christmas shopping rush and retailers at Charlestown Square struck by a false alarm over traffic snarls.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
Fears tonight that at least part of yesterday's firestorm may have been deliberately lit. Owners of a Cessnock deer park say scores of their animals are dead thanks to a senseless firebug attack.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
The Roosa Park deer stud was a sorry sight today as terrified animals huddled together in their scorched pens. Fire engulfed the complex yesterday afternoon, killing many animals instantly and leaving others with agonising burns.
Down the back paddocks where all the deer are, there's 230 odd deer down the back. So far my son has counted a few that's got to be destroyed, and there are a lot of new fawns on the ground that just burnt. The fire just went straight over the top because they're too small, they're only just born. The fire went over the top of those.
Owners put the damage bill at well over $100,000 and have no doubt the fire was deliberately lit.
There's no one that was in action. Actually, the neighbours down the road saw a blue car stop and buzz off very, very quickly, and a few seconds later the whole fire let fly.
Cessnock police say there has been a spate of firebug attacks in the area recently, but without a positive identification, there's little they can do. There has been remarkably little damage to residential properties, but at nearby Neath, fire burnt out the roof cavity of the Uniting Church.
And the minister for our church came yesterday and he stopped in there for a couple of hours with me. Also, I was that upset. I'm one of the oldest ones to attend the church.
Neighbours armed themselves with garden hoses as the flames crept closer.
We had hoses and water just flowing all over that, and then there's a bit of a spark started on the front of our place, but that was put out fairly quickly.
6,500 hectares of bushland were destroyed in the Cessnock area alone, with another 500 hectares near Edgeworth also going up in flames. Burning off and mopping up operations continued today, but should be finished by nightfall. Meanwhile, in Newcastle, scientific police are still yet to determine what caused this fire that destroyed 2 shops in Hunter Street West. The blaze enveloped the buildings just after 2:30 yesterday afternoon, and firefighters were pushed to the limit as they struggled to contain it. Both sites were unoccupied and seem certain to be demolished. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
It was a retailer's nightmare. Police asked shoppers en route to Charlestown Square to clear congested roads and take public transport. Barriers were installed and radio stations relayed announcements warning that parking at the complex was next to impossible. It's not the stuff that commercial dreams are made of.
The roadblocks are down because the car park is nowhere near full. So if we can get something over the radio, because I've got retailers here who are hurting hard because everyone thinks my car parks are full.
Charlestown Square management moved quickly upon discovering the centre was the unwitting victim of overzealous policing. For those who decided to ignore the warnings, parking proved not a problem as thousands of shoppers went elsewhere.
The last day before Christmas, very important day. We need all the trade we can get.
Despite the setback, retailers report shoppers defied the larger economic situation, with sales up on last year's figures. There's been a move to less knickknacks and more practical gifts. But as always, sales of the traditional fare were booming. And among this, a spirit of good cheer prevailed.
Go! Right, everybody, stop where you are. For the next 3 seconds, think about it. Turn to the person on your left and say Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
The site is nearing the end of its usefulness as a tip. 5 years from now, it should see the rolling fairways and greens of an 18-hole public golf course. 15 months ago, this area was a tip face. It's now being developed into a driving range, practice bunker and green. A pro shop will hire clubs, balls and expert instruction from local professional Rick McLean.
In the middle, left arm straight. Yep. That's you.
The range should attract accomplished golfers as well as learners. For some, it could also be a good excuse for a trip to the dump.
Well, I think it's going to be hard for the gatekeeper working out who's playing golf and who's going to dump rubbish. I think there's going to be a few dads putting the golf clubs in the back of the bus for sure.
A few beers and a golf bag and throw all your rubbish in, I think, yeah.
As many as 40 golfers can tee off at once. The range will operate 7 days, with night lighting to be installed. Unless you're a big hitter like Greg Norman, Gary Wise or yours truly, there's little risk of losing the ball beyond the 250-metre limit. But if you do, you're likely to encounter a whole new set of obstacles. Meals on Wheels serves more than 140,000 hot meals from its 8 kitchens throughout the district each year. The Christmas dinners had just gone out last year when the quake almost brought the roof in on the Newcastle kitchen. The service was operating from the old Sunday school building at St Andrew's Presbyterian Church, which was also seriously damaged. The volunteers moved their operations to an army barracks and then to a temporary kitchen in Derby Street. But today we're busy fitting plates, pans, cookers and colanders back into the restored inner city building. The pot was sweetened with a 10-year rent-free lease from the church. An ageing population ensures busy times ahead for the kitchen, but meeting the needs of the old and infirm and finding volunteers to distribute meals can be a tall order.
People are so busy these days, they can't find time to give us an hour a day or something.
The housing market has always been a reliable indicator of a region's economic health. With the Australian economy in recession, figures released by the Valuer General's Department show prices in Sydney have fallen dramatically over the last year. But it appears the Hunter region is holding its own better than most other areas, with housing prices continuing their upward climb.
Sydney saw such dramatic increases. The prices rose by around about 60% and fell back to about 40%, where Newcastle prices only rose by around about 18% in the same period. So our prices were more moderate, and therefore we haven't suffered as badly or near as badly as Sydney has during this economic recession.
According to the figures published in today's Sydney Morning Herald, the most noticeable increase was at Edgeworth, where property values rose by 23% to $105,000.
What we've seen is a dramatic catch-up in the Edgeworth area, where by now that the replacement cost of housing is fairly similar to the established cost, and that's, I think, would be part of the reason. The other reason is too that Edgeworth's very close to the freeway.
But having most effect on the region's housing market and consequently the economy is the earthquake. Money has and will continue to be injected into the area through the building industry.
What happened as a result of the earthquake, it brought a lot of money into Newcastle, and it filtered right through the industry, through the real estate industry and through all the other associated industries as well. So it was very good for Newcastle, and it's carried Newcastle for the last 12 months.
According to the Real Estate Institute, Newcastle is in a prime position to weather the recession. The end of Ozfire's Sydney to Hobart came at 9:45 this morning, just off Bermagui on the New South Wales south coast, when its crew notified officials they were pulling out and heading for shore. They named their reason as mast problems, ironic considering when the $500,000 Mummery 45 was launched on Newcastle Harbour in November, its mast was seen as probably its greatest asset. Secured by steel rods, owner and skipper Doug Coulter claimed it was aerodynamically designed to make it far more flexible. In fact, the whole boat was seen as revolutionary. Designed in New Zealand, it was one of only 2 of its type built. However, that mast was destined to be plagued by problems from the very beginning. At the yacht's debut in the Sydney to Hobart preliminary trials, it caused major problems with the decking. Before today's withdrawal, Ozfire had been performing well, sitting 12th in the field of 103. Lake Macquarie's other race entrant, New Horizons, is believed to be still in the field at this stage. The renewal unit has 2 positions to fill, either by an individual or a company on a contract basis. The first is for the coordination of reconstruction. The other will be in charge of building.
I would expect that council will see a lot of value in this person making a big contribution to the civic site, because after all council owns that site, and I would expect that council would also see the coordination service working to assist other developers, those who own land, such as the state government with the Honeysuckle site, and private developers in other major sites in Newcastle.
The advertisement, which appeared in yesterday's Newcastle Herald, contained no mention of pay. According to Brian Eastoe, that's because as yet the state and federal governments have not agreed to fund the positions.
I'm confident at the moment. We are still negotiating with the state and federal authorities on the aspect of funding. It's a matter of explaining to them really what renewal is about, and that's been a difficult task to conceive of.
The unit needs $750,000 on top of the $200,000 given to it by council for its first year of operation. This day 1 year ago, Newcastle was rocked by Australia's first fatal earthquake. 9 people died at the Workers' Club, another 3 were killed by falling awnings in Beaumont Street, Hamilton. It hasn't been an easy year for the city, but 12 months on, Newcastle is on the road to recovery. Today's short ceremony in Civic Park was attended by hundreds of people who, in one way or another, experienced the intensity of the quake.
That we have come so far in just a year is clearly the result of having worked together. Alone or even in small groups, we could not have achieved so much. Only a very special people could have achieved so much. I am proud to be a citizen of the Newcastle region. Newcastle has been changed by the earthquake. It has been a change caused by nature, begun with tragedy and managed with caring.
For those people who lost friends and relatives, today's service brought back many memories. Faye Sparks' husband Barry died at the Workers' Club.
In one way it's gone slowly, otherwise it's gone fast. It seems to have come around very quickly, but it hasn't been easy.
For those who survived the rubble like roadie Patrick Murray, a year on the quake has left a feeling of frustration and anger.
Oh, it's just, frustration of not being able to go out and just do things that I used to do before. I used to love walking a lot, but now I walk about 3 or 4 blocks and that's it.
And there are those like Nina Bailey, who lay trapped in the Workers' Club for hours, and now, although confined to a wheelchair, sees herself as one of the lucky ones.
I'm giving thanks that I'm here and I've got my life. That's my Thanksgiving.
The experts say it could be 10 years before Newcastle fully recovers, and according to the Lord Mayor, it will be up to the city to help itself.
I think it's pretty clearly demonstrated after several government decisions at state and federal level that we're on our own and we've got to look after ourselves. We've demonstrated we can do that, and I'm very confident for the future.
It was 2-1 on the centre court of the Roach Racket Resort today, but when the one happens to be Ivan Lendl, the odds are just about right. The world number 3 has once again chosen the Salamander Bay Resort to knock his game into shape before the Australian Open later this month.
I haven't played for a while, so I'm hitting them better every day, but it's still way too early, so not too worried about it right now.
Today's practice session was a torturous one. The lanky Czech pushed himself to the limit in a bid to attain the level of fitness he'll need to capture his personal holy grail, a Wimbledon singles title.
Oh, I just would like to play well in the Grand Slams and hopefully win some.
Wimbledon's still the burning ambition that it was?
Oh, of course, it's the only one I haven't won and would be nice.
His first engagement, though, is this week's Port Stephens Tennis Classic. His task has been made all the tougher by the last-minute inclusion of stylish Swede Jonas Svensson.
He's 11 in the world, so it's a real big plus for the tournament. And also David Pate, who's a good player from the United States, is making up the field.
The tournament begins this Wednesday, and you can catch all the finals action live on NBN.
In Newcastle, meetings continued all day at the Amalgamated Metalworkers Office. This afternoon, committee members met to discuss the latest developments. Peter Barrack, who is also Newcastle Trades Hall Secretary, said it was significant that the Lord Mayor had convened the meeting at such short notice. There was some good news for the 450 employees of Carrington Slipways. Their wages will be met for 7 days from next Wednesday by the Australian National Line, which has a $36 million cargo vessel nearing completion with the company. The workers will have a mass meeting at 6:30 a.m. on Wednesday before resuming work. But the committee's aim is to see the Commonwealth Bank reverse the decision to put the slipways into receivership. The Commonwealth Bank doesn't reverse its decision. What is your next step?
Well, the step would be to go to see the Commonwealth Government. The Commonwealth Bank is an arm of government, and we believe that the Commonwealth Government have a responsibility to intervene.
If the government refuses to step in, the future of the Tomago Bay slipways looks grim.
I'm sorry to say then I would see it as the closure of Carrington Slipways as we've known it.
And what does this mean to Newcastle?
Well, it means a loss of at least 400 jobs directly employed at Carrington, and possibly another 300 indirectly. So at this point in time, we can hardly afford the loss of those jobs.
That's all right. You can have it.
This report on the Premier's press conference yesterday was described by Nick Griner's department as fanciful. Cuts to work on Sydney hospitals and to the upgrading of the Pacific Highway were strongly denied. But it was agreed the Premier did say that new spending would be limited. In the Hunter, there are fears that work on country hospitals and urban roads could be put on hold. The Hunter Area Health Service fears the redevelopment of Maitland Hospital at a cost between $20 and $30 million could be indefinitely delayed. The work would replace a substandard wing of the hospital. There are also worries that the redevelopment of James Fletcher and Morisset hospitals could be slowed up. According to State Member for Charlestown, Richard Face, the future for further work on Hunter roads could be grim. Already construction of the Charlestown bypass has been deferred and work on the Swansea Bends has been slowed down. He fears both projects could suffer during the next year.
The Brooklyn rail crash involving steam train 3801 last May claimed 6 lives and spelt the possible demise of steam on the state's railway lines.
SRA has used it to say no steam and in fact no private running. Baird's comment was that there shouldn't be any amateurs on his professional railway.
The SRA denies claims that it is set to extend bans already in place since the crash. A coronial inquiry cleared the steam train crew of blame, but the incident raised other questions.
We want to assure ourselves that when they run, that the standards to which the rolling stock's been maintained is the best it possibly can be, and that secondly, the historical societies in their own interest have got to concern themselves that they have adequate insurance cover.
Most of the old steam trains with their timber carriages are cared for and operated by enthusiasts and have to meet stringent safety requirements. Local groups have fought hard to keep steam alive. Steamfest has been the showpiece of their efforts for the past 5 years, attracting more than 40,000 people last year. But a cloud now hangs over the April event.
It would be a disaster for the whole Hunter region to have Steamfest not go on.
Without steam on the rail, steam on the streets, which is what we're getting round to with Steamfest for Hunter Valley, is a lesser event.
The government is likely to make a decision within weeks. Andrew Lobb reporting for NBN News.